Let's talk about the Eternals. The Eternals.
Finally.
So the Eternals is a Marvel Studios film that features Marvel Studios heroes and villains in the Marvel Studios Marvel Cinematic Universe. Did I preface that correctly? I think I got all that in there. There we go.
I assume so. Yeah.
Okay, so this film,
Tell the people how much you hated it.
all right, so people were like, what would you honestly grade this? Because again, I don't like to put numbers on things. I hate doing that because people are like, oh, this is officially what you said is a number. It's like, but you got to get through what I'm saying for the number, right? Like, it's always one of those things.
Mm.
I always tell people, it's like, look, my favorite Resident Evil game of all time is Resident Evil 3. I'd give that like an 8 out of 10, even though 2 and 1 are superior. Again, so going into Eternals, if I really had to grade it, like, all right, like, do it or we're shooting this off into you and you're probably gonna I might die if they shoot me with it. I don't know. It depends on who's shooting me, right? I'd give it like an 8. An 8 out of 10 is what I would give it. Now, I guess that could kind of seem low if a majority of the MCU films I'd be like, 8 out of 5. It's right in there. It's not in my
8
bottom.
out of 5.
Or 8.5 out of 10 or whatever the hell I'm trying to say. 8 out of 5, man. Now I'm grading this on a whole different scale.
Oh, so man, loved it.
Yeah, I've skewed the scale so far now to bend over backwards for Captain America ratings. This is what happens. But yeah, like I do have issues with this film. I think rewatching it actually helped me like it more because I was honestly expecting the villain Crow to be
Named?
a villain. Does that make sense? Like, I think that's my honest biggest problem was like when people said it's kind of like a phase 1 film, I was like, let's see what part of it. And subliminally, when I left the first showing, my mind knew it was Crow, but I couldn't put my finger on it. And rewatching, I was like, that was, I think, the thing. It has the villain problem. And I think that's really the thing that really stuck out to me. Like, and honestly, I could have gone with like Icarus just framing like there's an actual villain and not even revealing the deviants, but I kind of, they need them for the rest of the plot and how they connect to the Celestial. So like I get it, but that was really the only part to me that didn't work because I loved what they did with every single Eternal. Like it felt like by the time the third act comes, you're like, yep, everybody's fleshed out. So, that worked great with it. But besides obviously he's not an Eternal, but Dane Whitman, that was like, you're gonna see more of him. He's just here because we need to tell you you're gonna see more of him. But otherwise, like, yeah. So I'd give it an 8 out of 10. Now I know you like to me it's in the bottom half, but still the bottom half I enjoy.
I was gonna say we're polar opposites on this.
Yeah, to me the absolute bottom is Thor 2 and Guardians 2. This is like what's there like 30 MCU projects at this rate? I think.
Yeah.
So it's like in 20, I think. That's like the position it sits in. So, it's in the bottom 10, I guess, right there at the 10. It's probably going to bump up a little higher when I rewatch it at home comfortably and get to analyze it a little more. But where would you place it at?
Mine's still in the top 3.
What's it joining up there?
Firmly. See, it will change constantly, but I think right now it's Infinity War and Endgame.
Mm-hmm.
If like gun to head had to make a top 3, Infinity War Endgame.
Yeah.
Even that's kind of like hard to say as well because rewatching everything, or at least the IMAX movies on Disney Plus, it's kind of like it's really hard to make a top 3.
Yeah.
So I rewatched Guardians 1 for the first time in about 5 years, and I'm like, I really love this movie.
It's great. Yeah,
and then they took an absolute nosedive in the second one.
Yeah.
In fact, rewatching Guardians 1 made me dislike Guardians 2 even more. Then rewatching Guardians 2, I'm like, I feel the exact same way I did 5 years ago about this movie.
That happened to me like last year, and that's kind of like why my list, I think I'm going to have to reshuffle it one more time when I really look at it. But when I watched 1 and 2, just like you, back to back, chronologically, I decided to watch them because that's how they flow. I was like, oh, Lord, this is not it. And like Eternals, I think, has some of that effect where I don't think I was ready for this type of film in the MCU. And I'm not saying that as a bad thing. I'm just saying it is that factor of people screamed for so long, I want something different. They finally got it. And now they're like, go back to the normal MCU. It's like, well, you got plenty of the normal MCU, and also there is a huge like amount of people that do hate it for the agenda.
Yeah. I think those people.
Yeah.
But to clarify, the order of my top 3 is Endgame, Infinity War, Eternals.
Okay. Yeah.
Those 3. That is subject to change at any point. But
right.
I've seen Eternals twice. It's been 2 weeks nearly since I've seen it. It's right now. It's still firmly in my top 3. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Could change at any given point, but that's just me. And I know because it's a weird one. I've read everything, not everything, but the majority of what I ever saw for the reviews of this movie. And people going, "Oh, it's messy, it's hard to follow, it's this, it's that, da 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 da," and I'm like, expectations super low.
Yeah.
Like horrendous 2 weeks thanks to the Facebook group. I hate you all, bunch of fucking pricks. Like rock bottom.
Yeah.
Go into it, and I'm like, what the hell? Like whether that I said this on the Nerd Academy with Jared stuff and Imperious Comics with Ricardo. I don't know if that affected me watching the movie or not.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly couldn't tell. Normally I could be like, oh yeah, I like to consider this, but this one I find it hard to tell. And it's like, people go, oh, it jumps around, it's messy. I'm like, it's no different to Infinity War. Yeah. Personally, Infinity War would be harder to follow than this movie. Infinity War just hard cuts and jumps.
Especially if you're like a newcomer, right? Like, and I know the Avengers, they're hoping you're not, but like, I get what you're saying. If you were to give this film and Infinity War to somebody that's brand new and say, hey, which one do you understand more? I'm pretty sure Eternals would be way easier to follow.
Yeah. Because here's my thing, and I know that's going to be controversial. People are going to absolutely flip their crap on that one. But Infinity War, literally, it will start an action scene. It will hard cut to Thor talking to giant Peter Dinklage for 20 minutes. And then it hard cuts back. Mm-hmm. Right? Eternals, and this is completely weird. I don't understand how people go, oh, it's messy. It's like they'll bring up one thing, the flashback will start talking about the one thing they mentioned. The flashback will then end with something it then cuts to in present day. Yeah. Like to me, that's not messy, and there's no like difficult flow there. Like that's how it should be. Everything leads into the next thing you're gonna watch.
Yeah, and that's also a complaint I didn't understand as well. And I did find it a little weird the first time, or at least like the first half of the film. I was like, oh, I see what they're doing. Because to me, that flow made sense because suddenly, oh, here's Thena, and we caught up with them. Okay, now we're gonna flash back to this, and we're gonna show you why she has this PTSD in her memories, and then we're gonna show you how this rift started at this specific moment. So if you connect that to the previous character, like it's not a standard film that has a natural flow. And what this reminds me of, and again, I'd like to point this out because this has been praised in 2 other films recently. Birds of Prey and The Suicide Squad both have elements of this where you show something, then you jump back. Like Birds of Prey did that genius where Harley Quinn is trying to tell a story, but her mind is scrambled, so she's all over the place. I think this kind of does that same thing because it's doing it well. It's just a more grandiose scale. So I think you feel a little bit more jarring. And I did talk to some people that obviously, like I'm hardcore into history, specifically ancient history. So when they were talking about Babylon and Mesopotamia and all this, I was like, this is my stuff right here, right? Like went to history for extensive amounts of classes and everything. So I love that stuff. To me, it made sense, but some of my friends and people I saw this with, they were like, there's some disconnect here because to them, they don't have a grasp of time when this happened. And I'd have to be like, oh,
yeah.
I understand that point. And that I think they could have made a little bit more clear because you don't understand that when things happen in Mesoamerica, that's still thousands of years after what happened in Babylon. And some people are like, wait, is that happening around? I'm like, oh, no. This is thousands of years. They were there with the migration. Like it's, so there is that disconnect for me. And again, for me, it wasn't a disconnect because the moment I see it, I'm like, I know the exact year, I know what battle they're talking about, but casuals are like, who?
Yeah, because I've seen, there's a YouTuber I used to follow and like he didn't do any sort of this, but he's now decided to review this movie.
Uh-huh.
And he was going like, they can't decide if it's 5,000 or 7,000 years ago. I'm like, you got something confused. Like something's crossed there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna hate on you or anything, but you watch it again and actually like really. I hate being like pay attention to the movie. Like actually like listen because it's the two separate things.
Yeah, it's.
Also, did they say like 500 or 5 centuries ago, 5,000 years ago? Like, I don't know, people can get together. Like, in a movie like that, like, especially if you're not paying that much attention because you're like waning interest, like things can get crossed all the time.
Yeah,
I've been guilty of it myself.
And I think another giant piece I did see of the complaints, and I kind of had this. I understand they're playing the long game with this, so they didn't want to do it right away. But like, everybody I talked to was like, I was hoping to see a battle with a Celestial. And I'm like, yeah, that kind of felt like it was almost there, right? Like, we almost got it.
I mean, that's just like not what Celestials do. that's not the deal.
And that was kind of it. I was like, well, okay, but now we got the one almost comic panel or cover with look, there's a frozen Celestial now, and that's kind of like a leftover plot point. That's kind of going to be cool to see what happens next. Like, it is a movie that sets up a lot. I will give it that. And boy, did they go grandiose with everything? Because like, even I had some doubts. I was like, they're not going to explain how the universe and the planet. Nope, they're literally going to explain how this is a lot.
Here's Arishem talking for 5 minutes about everything.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay. And see, I said it before, I can't remember if it was Jared or for Ricardo. Like, that point for me seems to be the make or break for people. If you're not into the movie after that scene, then it's not for you. If you're into it at that point, then you're fine the rest of the way through it.
Yeah.
But personally, I was in it from the get-go. I don't know, that movie started and I was like, I'm finally seeing Eternals. It's been so long. I've waited for 84 years.
I think the film falls into that weird category of, and again, I'm somebody that appreciates the Marvel street side of things way more than the cosmic thing. Like
I'm absolutely a cosmic junkie in this one.
Exactly, which is I think why there's a disconnect between people like me as well and then people like you who like the cosmic side, because I have a friend who absolutely adores everything on the cosmic side of Marvel and DC, and he loved it. But lo and behold, he does not like things like Daredevil and stuff. He's like, there's nothing grandiose creationism or anything like that. I'm like, I get it. Like, and again, this one, more so than any other MCU project, is willing to, I don't want to say devalue everything, but it almost kind of has that sense of devaluing everything by saying,
it's too big and everything else is like, well, what does this matter now?
Exactly.
Sort of thing, yeah.
Kind of like how Loki did that after they revealed the whole thing, and everybody was like up in arms about the Infinity Stones and how it's all preset. They're like, okay, you've just undid and nothing matters. I'm like, I think this, even at a bigger level, goes so hard in that you almost get disconnected from it. You're like, if I'm not in right now, it could pull you out. And I think that.
I totally get it. Like the Eternals in the comics weren't for everyone. Yeah. There's the reason why Kirby never finished the run. There is a reason why, and like it's that's totally fine. Like people don't like it, people don't like it. You can't please everything. You look at some people's list of MCU movies, and you're like, how the hell is that movie down the bottom? And it's like, it should be way up higher. And it's like, oh, you get something out of it. It's different to what everyone else does.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen people. There's people that have Thor: The Dark World in like their top 5, and you're just like, boy,
they're wrong, but it's fine.
I don't know about opinions being factually wrong, but let me tell you about this one.
There's a time and a place, and the time is now for that to be wrong.
What other things in this film stood out to you that you kind of want to talk about?
I mean, what didn't stand out to me, Christ? I could talk about this movie for days. Like, this is my 3rd time doing it. But like going back to the whole Crow thing, like I'm absolutely with everyone. Like they didn't even name the guy, for Christ's sake. What a waste! If I had to crap on something, it's that I hated And it's pure genuine hate, because I thought they went for a really interesting direction of there is no villain, everything's morally grey in this story, it's about survival. And then they have Thena killing Moff right as he got interesting, and it's just like, why? Like, you didn't have to do that.
Yeah, like there's that moment in the film where he's like just about to almost become a sympathetic, like you're almost looking at him like a hero, being like, hey man, maybe he could literally just spell this out right now and be like, look, what you guys have done by getting constantly mind wiped is literally caused the ending of like hundreds of all we know, of thousands of civilizations. I am fighting for my survival. So, like, I'm not technically the bad guy. You guys have always hunted me. We're just trying to survive. And there was almost this point where I was like, are they literally going to say the Eternals could go either way? Like, this could be really interesting. And it's like, oh no, Crow just croaked. Huh, all right, move along. And then,
and for those wondering, Crow is the deviant that evolves. They didn't name him.
Yep.
At all.
No.
No, a rather important character to Jack Kirby's Eternals throughout the years. Just nameless and diced.
just
it kind of I can't like that. It took me out of the movie a little bit, and it took me out. Luckily, the action in that final act was thank God for Makkari.
That is the greatest super speed effect I've ever seen. It is just, it felt so chaotic and frantic yet real. Like, I don't know how to describe that super speed effect of when she's moving. It's, man, that looked amazing.
I say it's the fact that it wasn't in slow-mo.
Yeah. Yep.
Because like, personally, it's not anything new. We've seen speedsters from that angle and do all that stuff before, but it's just like, we're not going to have it in slow-mo. If she's running, you're going to see it's quick.
Yeah.
And it makes that whole jump scene where God knows where she jumps from and lands, but she goes miles in one jump. It's just like, wow.
Yeah. No, I was.
Also helps. Is it Lauren Rindelof? I can't remember her name, but like she was fantastic as that character.
Yeah, she was.
For the 10 minutes she had screen time. It's like, I understand why Makkari had to be last, because Speedster, obviously. Speedster's always at the bottom end of the stick. But like, it's just like, but hopefully, because, worldwide, because I'm going to narrative the numbers here. Like, he's done better than Shang-Chi in his second weekend, so
Well, I guess let's talk about that for a little bit, because, I mean, so far right now, we got 2 weeks in, and we're at 285 million worldwide.
Which is a hell of a lot. I don't see how anyone can say it's not making money.
Yeah, it's...
did it have a fairly decent drop in domestic box office? Yeah. Guess what? Everything else does.
Yeah.
But it's comparable to, I think it was Black Widow. Like, all intents and purposes, like this movie, like, it opened to what, 4 million less than Shang-Chi did.
Yeah.
Yes, it was below expectations, what everyone was saying it was going to do. But guess what? It's still comparable to a movie everyone's praising. Second weekend, globally, it outperforms Shang-Chi. Like, but oh no, the movie's a failure. Right? I kind of don't get it, but hey, that's me.
It's in.
Also, this movie, I only noticed this because I watched Shang-Chi recently again because it's on Disney Plus. The structure of this movie is very similar to Shang-Chi.
How do you mean? Because I haven't watched Shang-Chi since it's come out. So,
like, the amount of flashbacks and how it tells the story and goes backwards and forwards, you just have this cold opening.
Oh, that's true.
And they also end on the exact same cliffhanger.
Yeah.
It's take out obviously the dialogue and the event that happens. It's the exact same thing.
Yep.
Just they're hanging out, they're talking about everything that just happened. Oh, someone shows up and takes them away.
Well,
sequel.
Okay, so
the only difference is you have a 5-minute thing for the first credit scene for Shang-Chi, because that scene is long.
Right, it is, yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, the movie ended. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
That's how long this scene is. Well, and Eternals is like, you get Harry Styles, which manifested the school kids in front of me, and I'm still not over that.
that's kind of like crazy. It's like, okay, so we're bringing in multiple characters into the ending scenes of this film. Obviously, one of which has been
Yeah.
confirmed. But now we got Pip the Troll, we got Star Fox, and we got Blade. Boy,
Yep.
that is a range of characters. That is.
Yeah.
Uh,
I know. The last time I think we did this, or Marvel did this even, was the Dark World.
yeah.
Because you had the Collector and
Yeah.
Pink Lady.
And I remember everybody based Guardians is going to bomb on that scene, being like, this is stupid. Nobody's going to buy into this world and these ridiculous characters. Because he was like, look at me, I'm Fibonacci. Ooh. And you're like, what is going on here? What is this? Like, it's a little weird, but I do appreciate it because they go just hard at the end with those post-credit scenes. And I'm excited what's to come next. That the film leaves me with that. It leaves me with excitement. Now, do we get a sequel? We don't know because there's
gonna be a sequel.
You would hope
There's no
so,
way
right?
they don't. There's nearly 300 million in 2 weeks. Yeah, they're making a sequel. This isn't I just don't get the conversation around this movie. Like it or not, there is absolutely people being like, "Oh, I don't like it, therefore it's doing badly." Like that. Yeah. How?
Meanwhile, they have literally a BVS 2 months ago still, Mitch. They still support BVS.
Yeah. That's very true. It's that they don't care what Rotten Tomatoes says, and they don't care because they were silent on the entire thing. The only time you ever got a response from one of them was when someone had to ask Victoria Alonso. She gave the cringy WB line of, it's for the fans to decide. Like, shut up. I just don't say anything at all. Come up better for it. But other studios, you get the rotten score, and then you hear all this stuff about the movie and how it went wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You got nothing from that. Absolutely nothing. So now, if they weren't happy with it, I'm pretty certain Chloe Zhao would be like, yeah, I'm gonna crap on them. I got my money, I'm gonna crap on them.
Right, yeah. I mean,
because I
yeah, and everything we've heard, everybody had a good experience shooting it. It's been all good things. So I mean, and look, they can't just leave everything hanging now. Being like, we're never gonna deal with everything that happens in this film. This film is a huge piece of the lore and the entire history and future now. So good luck not trying to explore it.
They literally could not ignore the ending of the movie.
Could you imagine
that? So, we just set up the celestial host. Which one it is, we don't know. I assume it's going to be the first, and they're going to play it that way. But you can't ignore that. Even just if you do ignore that, the fact that you just had one of the probably most at least for me, that the most iconic shot they've ever done of just Arisham's head in the clouds. Everyone, that's a Galactus shot. Everyone knows that shot.
I laughed so hard during that shot because I fixated on the dude that just grabs his bike and starts pedaling the opposite direction. I was like, this is amazing.
Does someone actually do that?
He literally, it's a dude on a bike, and he just notices he starts going the other way. I was like, bro, that's my exact reaction. That is exactly what I would do. What? Like, this universe, we've had an alien invasion. Half of us got snapped away. Another invasion. We're all back. Things are gone to hell. What could possibly be worse?
A giant six-eyed face in the sky.
Six-eyed face in the sky, bigger than the moon, just staring at us, screaming. Okay, that ending gets me real hyped for what comes next, because I assume they're gonna have to deal with everything that happened in the ocean again, which means, there's some stuff happening there, because there's a celestial coming out of the mantle that's suddenly just stuck halfway exiting now. Yeah, that's going to cause some problems. I would assume.
I was going to say, in a real world logical scenario, we'd have been tilted off our axis and looking like Titan right about now. But we ain't like that. Yeah. This is a world where this thing exists, and I adore the fact that, I'm not 100% sold on the look of the Celestials. I think they're too similar in the face.
Same.
It's like, hey, here's Tiamat. He has 4 instead of 6 eyes. Thanks.
Yeah, that is a complaint that I was like, this is kind of uninspired, but
I love the lanky look though.
Mm-hmm.
The whole really thin, like elongated arms, the legs are tiny, the shoulders are massive. But I love that, but you could have incorporated some more actual designs from the comics or the iconography even. But like just the fact that they exist, like that's my jam.
And it's also the prep, because these guys are going to pale in comparison to what happens when Galactus shows up. So it's like, this is a, palate cleanser. It's just like, here you go. We're going to do more. Just wait.
I mean, Galactus ain't shit compared to these.
Oh, when they do him, he will be, because they're gonna make him, because it's Galactus.
The only way they can do that is if they do the Earth X angle, and it's like, oh yeah, he goes to planets that have the eggs inside.
Of course. I mean, that'll make sense.
I'll be fine with that personally.
Yeah.
It would make it a bit more, I don't know, probably a bit more sympathetic for Galactus, but not that he needs that really.
Yeah,
but,
we'll see. We'll see.
Because to me, you can't do Galactus that big. That's too big for Galactus. I know he can change his size, but you kind of like Galactus is someone you can have stand on the planet. Celestials need to be bigger.
Yeah, I can see it.
Also, like space, they spent 2.5 hours touting about how they're space gods. Like, you then gonna have Galactus come in here and be bigger?
Yeah, that's true. Maybe they'll meet somewhere in the middle, and he can adjust size, or as he consumes, he gets bigger or something. It's the typical trope, I guess.
Yeah, they'll figure something out for
that. Yeah, they will.
I just love the fact that.
Mitch, closing thoughts then on this film. What do you think? What do you think of the general reaction to it? 'Cause it's.
I mean, the general reaction to it's whatever. It's.
Yeah.
I know it'll be the typical, like, oh look, he's only saying this now because it's a movie that he likes and everyone doesn't like. It's like, fair enough, like. But the whole, like, do review numbers. I've said it before. I hate giving numbers and letters. I can't stand it. Everyone's numbers and letters mean different things. Even it's going like, oh, just go by the school grades. Like, yeah, well, the English grades are different to American grades, and I don't even know my own, let alone yours. So, what does that mean? Like, numbers, some people go, oh, it's okay, it's a 4 out of 10, which I don't know how you calculate that one, but fine, that's your own number, whatever. Like, there's too many variables with it, and I hate it, and it's time for numbers to end. As a whole, as a concept, numbers need to go away.
Yeah, I hate it.
And I don't get how people can be like, oh, but cinema score, and it's like, but the audience score means nothing. It's like, but that's what cinema score is. How can one audience number be nothing but the other one mean everything? I don't.
Well,
I don't
Mitch,
get.
Here it is. It depends on what forms the argument to favor your own narrative. That's the one that matters most. Because remember, remember, for certain things, only the critic score matters if it's high.
It's true.
But if it's low, then you go to the audience score, because that favors your argument. So that's how you bounce around. You got to do mental gymnastics.
And I absolutely will for this movie, because I adored it.
Perfect.
Now, is there something wrong with it? Yes. Like, could you maybe cut out a few things? Maybe.
Yeah.
But then again, personally, with the amount of introducing 10 characters, it could have been probably another 20 minutes longer.